It's nearly 40 years since Margaret Thatcher introduced her totemic scheme to give council tenants the right to buy their houses at a large discount to the market price. For years, the policy was seen as a success, with more than 2.6 million homes sold using the scheme. It facilitated a shift in wealth in our society, enabling many to buy their first house. But now there's a severe housing crisis, partly due to a shortage of social housing, and the right to buy is getting the blame. The figures are certainly frightening. I mean, 40% of council houses sold to tenants are now owned and let by private landlords. By selling on their homes, tenants have made a total of £6 billion in profit since 2000. And at the same time, local councils are spending fortunes either renting or buying back the houses they used to own. While Right to Buy did see a shift of wealth to poorer people, it also pulled up the ladder for future generations. It's been scrapped in both Scotland and Wales, and maybe it's time to do the same in England.
The whole point about this Thatcherite policy was that it tried to cut across class lines and to fulfil the capital aspiration for working class people of owning their own houses and making some money. And it is not right that in this country that option mostly is only available to rich people. It is open to capitalists. Why shouldn't the capitalist system be accessible to working class people? Michael Heseltine said this quote, which is a really good quote. He said, "No single piece of legislation has enabled the transfer of so much wealth from the state to the people." I think that is a fantastic thing. And it's not just about money. It's about... I lived in a council house and my mum bought hers and we got out of it. It's about pride. It's about owning something. It's about... No, let me finish. It's about passing on something to your kids. And yes, I do know that people shouldn't be allowed to sell a council house and then buy another one. But the point is they're not doing that because the majority of people buy them, they have pride in them, they take care of them, and then when they die, they're sold on. And yes, some of them are sold to private landlords. Yes, they have them. But who else are they going to sell to? Of course they're going to sell to private landlords. But they should have the right to make money out of property the same way as you do and we do and everyone around the state.
I don't fundamentally disagree. I was in the Labour Party back in the days when this all came in, and I was one of the few people I knew who argued that I thought the right to buy was fair, that actually people who couldn't afford the mortgage or couldn't afford what they buying a house actually had paid rent for years and were perfectly entitled to own it.
Of course.
The problem is, what we didn't do, and Mrs Thatcher deliberately stopped, was we didn't use that money to build more houses.
She did. She built more than Labour, Greg.
No, that's not the point. That's not the point. They did not use the money to build houses. In fact, local authorities were told they couldn't spend this money.
But you can't just accuse Thatcher of that.
No, I'm not just Thatcher. It's governments over time. But what we should have done was use the money that was coming in to build more social housing, and then you could sell that on and then carry on.
But that's not the fault of the people buying the house. That isn't their fault.
No, it is. I agree. It's not.
But then, surely then, Greg, the problem isn't right to buy, because, you know, it's not often that I agree with Carol on this show. But I agree with everything she just said. You know, for my family, the only way that they were able to get onto the property ladder was because of right to buy. And without it, the opportunities that my siblings and I had wouldn't have been there, you know.
But we couldn't have forced...
No, so my point is, surely then the problem isn't right to buy. The problem is how we fix the type of building that's going on at the moment, in that the government isn't building anywhere near enough houses.
Well, the building we haven't done over 20, 30 years.
And we have to decide what our priority is. Rather than selling off prime land to wealthy property developers, perhaps councils need to actually develop that prime land themselves.
Now, it's not often I agree with Jeremy Corbyn, but this was him speaking about this issue in April last year.
The only times we've built enough affordable housing is when councils have stepped in to do it. We know by now that we cannot rely on arm's-length incentives for private house builders, building for profit to solve the crisis. As they themselves openly acknowledge, it's simply not profitable for them to build houses for the less well-off. We need to do it ourselves. But council building has been in decline since the Tories introduced right to buy.
I mean, I wouldn't agree with him that the councils should actually build the houses. I don't think direct works is particularly works. But the idea that someone has a policy that says this is the number of houses we've got to buy, here is the land, please do it. And make it a priority, I think he's right. But we haven't done that, and because of it, and a combination of that and what's happened to house prices in many parts of the country, I mean, there's a generation who can't get into owning
Theresa
houses.
May's committed $2 billion to building a whole
it's
raft
not
of new
happening,
houses.
That's what I was about to ask you, Greg.
happening.
When you played that clip, I was about to ask you, are you in favour of nationalisation of home building?
No, I'm not. I mean,
That's not what
I wouldn't. I wouldn't be in favour of nationalisation of home building, but I think local authorities and government should have policies that ensure we get more houses built, particularly for people who can't afford to buy.
And they should stop selling off all of that land.
But you know, you mentioned stats before about the houses. There was only 16,000 council houses sold last year, as opposed to when this scheme started, and it was 167,000 sales in 1980. So it isn't that that's causing the housing shortage. It's the fact that they're not building more houses, and that is the problem. Is that various governments, we were letting at one point, I think, between 250 and 300,000 people a year into this country from Europe, from everywhere else, but we weren't building houses to accommodate them, and we weren't building houses to accommodate the people already here, and that is the problem now. We've got the population is bigger than it's ever been, with no houses for them.
How much is it a function, though, of the very overheated housing market in the southeast?
Well, it's about supply and demand, isn't it?
You know, overall, I know that the supply of social housing has fallen by 70% since 1980, which means that if you ended right to buy, what do you replace it with? You can't just say to councils, build more houses.
No, you can. You can if you have a plan and you have the money and you're prepared to finance it. You can do it.
But you don't
you could
need to
build.
end
I mean,
right
you go
to buy
back to when I was younger, and you saw enormous estates being built.
Arguably, you do need to end
housing.
right to buy because it has reduced the available stock of social housing so critically.
But I also think it's a great social experiment too, because you have working class people living on council estates, you have people buying into those estates, and you have a fantastic mix in terms of communities, which I think is really good.
I don't think the way we ran. I mean, I thought that by and large local authorities were not great landlords. I thought they were sort of bureaucratic and were difficult. But we have got a real problem. That's the thing, and that is we haven't got enough properties.
Stopping
we haven't got
the
enough
sale
houses.
of 16,000 houses annually is not going to deal with that real problem. We have to start building. Simple. I think they're two separate issues.
Massive expanding
I don't think we
population
stop right to buy. We just start building more.
Well, if you can build more, then you're right.
Yeah.
If you're going to build more.
If you're going to. Yeah.
And it's not, but I mean, you go back into the 60s and you go back into that period of the Wilson government, they were building thousands and thousands of houses.
Yeah. But arguably, in terms of macroeconomics, you know, the Thatcherite ideal of having a property owning democracy where everyone has a house has really fueled demand for housing, hasn't it? As has immigration, as Carol has rightly pointed out. Therefore, prices are just going up and up and up and up and up because there are more people chasing fewer properties. So the idea that you have a 70% discount on your own council house, and no inhibition of the council tenant then buying the property and flipping it to somebody else, means that you are going to see house prices carry on going up.
That doesn't happen that often.
It does.
It doesn't. They don't. No. There's been 139 properties sold in a month, which is kind of a record number.
But the net profit, as you said in your
is only 2.3 million. Rich people make that off one transaction.
No, but people have made money out of houses over the whole of the post-war period.
Exactly. And fair play to them.
They've made money from houses by the house prices increasing. They haven't necessarily made money by buying them at 70% discount and then selling them at market level.
But that's why I was going to go on and say that actually, because you've had that situation of the house prices going up, you've actually taken a whole group of people who could have, when I was young, could have got into the market, can't get in the market anymore.
Can I just say this final point? This is a very UK-centric attitude, because I've got some... I've got
properties abroad, and so is Greg.
No, I haven't. I've got lots of friends from places like Spain. They don't have these ambitions to own property in the same way that we do.
And my friends in America are the same, actually.